Hey guys, Fazzy back here, and in today's video we have the sequel to NHL Do You Remember? The series where we take a look at weird, obscure facts, glitches, and minor things that you may have forgotten about these EA NHL games. And in today's video I have 8 more items that you may have forgot about the EA NHL series. As always, if you guys do have any suggestions for further videos, definitely always leave that in the comment down below. If I do have enough and it doesn't feel like I'm stretching it, I will go ahead and start work on a part 3. But with all that being said, let's jump into NHL Do You Remember Part 2. Do you remember the duplicate draft pick glitch in NHL 21? So this was an entry I actually totally forgot about before seeing it in the comments on the last video. This glitch allowed you to basically duplicate the value of any of your draft picks at ease. So going here in NHL 21, we have the Arizona Coyotes, should have some pretty good draft pick value, and I should note, this is when draft pick value was already extremely high. So to be able to double this first round draft pick's value was insane. So you put the first round pick on there as normal. Let's go down to that second slot, and all you had to do was once again click on that spot, and just like that, you had 2 Arizona first round picks available to be traded. This became extremely overpowered when trying to get elite players, like going for Drysdale here. That would be an extremely easy accept there. Some of these guys, like a Pasternak, even though the value's in our favor, it will still be trade rejected. But if we go back here and try and do that trade for Jamie Drysdale, trade accepted. No brainer from the Anaheim Ducks, and we just fleeced them. You could also do this in the NHL entry draft. Let's just say you had pick number 30. You could continue to duplicate that and get 25, duplicate 25 until you get to the first overall pick. So this was something that was patched in the next year's game, but still a very, very funny glitch from NHL 21. Do you remember the legend of Jacob Forsbacka-Karlsson? So I can already hear you saying, what's so special about Jacob Forsbacka-Karlsson, or JFK for short? He was a monster in franchise mode. When you look at his stats, nothing here really jumps out of you. He shouldn't be anything special on paper. But he was one of those players that for whatever reason took a ton of shots in franchise mode. More than anybody else, he would take those shots and that would equate into a ton of goals. This was before we had the pass shot slider, so we could not change any of the shot frequencies. So he became extremely overpowered in franchise. So let's go and simulate a season here with JFK, and I can show you just how many shots he would take and compare that to other players around the league. So season simulated here with the Boston Bruins. We did make the playoffs, but that is not what we are here for. We are here to take a look at Jacob Forsbacka-Karlsson. Going to our player stats, let's go take a look. So Pasternak led the way in scoring, going all the way over here to the shots. So Pasternak, really good shooter, has 146. Jacob Forsbacka-Karlsson second on the team with 256. And to me that actually seems a little bit low, but he still was second on the Bruins in scoring. And that is not getting top line ice time as well. Comparing it to other players around the league, you'll see that he might not be the top of the league, but for a medium top 9 player, he is still around that top 20 mark, which was absolutely insane. He's 74 overall right now in this example with only medium top 9 potential. But yeah, he must have had the pass shot slider on 1. And it wasn't just me that came up with this observation. Lots of other YouTubers and players around the world have found this as well.
Brent, look at the shot totals for JFK, and you'll see why he's so good. He shoots more than anyone else in the league. As a result, he will be a scoring machine. His point totals with you so far are just the tip of the iceberg.
Jacob Forsbacka-Karlsson, see what I mean about this guy? 15 points and 26 on the second line. It's great. And he's a +6. All right, the most shots on the team, JFK. Marchand is right behind him, so you see that's why they score goals.
And just as a small Easter egg, JFK is joining our NHL 25 custom roster. Of course, he has to have 1 out of 5 for the pass shot slider. Do you remember you could not edit players at the launch of NHL 15? So we all know that NHL 15 was a disaster to say the least. But did you know you could not actually edit players at launch of the game? I didn't know that until recording this video. If we go to active roster, let's go see if we can edit some players. So active roster, obviously we're not going to be going under there to edit players. I'm just kind of showing you the whole lay of the land here. Custom players, obviously pretty self-explanatory, so it has to be under team rosters. Not going to be edit lines, and it's not going to be player movement. So that means it has to be under view rosters. So there we go. Let's go select our league. Let's go to the NHL. And the only options I have is to go back and to sort players. This is insane. This is any single player in the whole entire game at launch. If you did not agree with the potential and overall, you're stuck with it. If you wanted to go and give Connor McDavid, whose draft year it was in 2015, high franchise potential, you could not do that. Going down here, you'll see McDavid with elite potential. He was stuck with that at launch of the game. You could not edit it, you could not update it until a patch later down the line. But 10 years after that disastrous release, it's still crazy to look at some of this stuff, and it may be stuff that you did not know. Do you remember the NHL All-Star Game in franchise mode? I gotta say, the fact that this entry is even on the list really does hurt me. But at time of recording with NHL 25, there is still no playable All-Star Game in franchise mode. But in the Xbox 360 and PS3 days, that was not the case. There was a playable All-Star Game, and it would fill in players from each single team. It would take basically the top team's representation and add them to their respective All-Star team. Steven Stamkos there on our Tampa Bay Lightning at the time, he did make the All-Star team. This was very cool. You can see everyone that made it. It wasn't just the activity feed, which you can see so-and-so has been selected to the All-Star Game. You had it right there. You could jump into it, mess around, and do whatever you would like. You also weren't locked to whatever conference you were. If you were a Western Conference general manager, you could still control the East. If you were an Eastern team, you could control the West. Offline players have been asking for this to return for years upon years. Do we ever see it? Honestly, I do not know. Do you remember the old NHL trade deadline? So from NHL 21 onward, thankfully this has been a feature that has returned to the EA NHL series, but this was in prior games. Going back all the way to NHL Legacy Edition, there was a old trade deadline system, and it played quite differently from what we currently have. So instead of really having a countdown timer, you still did technically have 4 hours, but I could take all day and still be able to make these trades. Instead, we had the phone system. So if I went here, let's see, let's put Anthony Cirelli there, and let's go make a trade that we know is not going to go through. So Connor McDavid, I might actually have to get a player who is signed here. So let me swap that out quick. Andre Palat for Connor McDavid obviously will be rejected, which it is here in game. Now we lose that phone. It becomes inactive. So you only had a certain amount of chances to make a trade. So that means you really couldn't lowball teams, you really had to make use of your phones. So if we go and hang up here, both phones are inactive, and there we go. We can get a recap of what happened in that previous hour. All the trades, all the movement around the NHL, and then we can go and continue on. We have 3 hours remaining. So we have another 2 chances to make trades here at the deadline. So Ryan Callahan, let's go and make a trade that we know will go through for Rickard Rakell. In game here, trade accepted from the Ducks. That phone once again will become inactive. We can go and hang up this phone, and there we go. We have our recap from the second hour of the NHL trade deadline. For its time, this was actually pretty fun, but if I had to choose from what we currently have in this, I am choosing the modern NHL games. Do you remember the letter potential system? So as you may or may not have known, we've had various potential systems in these NHL games. Going back all the way to 2010, do you remember the letter potential system? So this was one of the worst ones in my opinion, just because it kind of was, at least in my opinion, the most confusing. So you had B-, you had C, you had A's, but they didn't really equate to even the star system that came in future games. So Bobby Ryan here, I can't actually see it from the screen unfortunately. So sorting by potential, Bobby Ryan the best player on the Ducks with a B potential. The Thrashers have a few B potentials, same with the Bruins, like a Phil Kessel, who did become a pretty good player, only 21 there, had a B-. So this, I really don't know how it worked in game. This was kind of right around when I was coming into the NHL series, so I really kind of started out more with the star system rather than the letter system. There you go, our first A, Drew Doughty, a very young Drew Doughty at this point. Kyle Okposo with an A apparently. Same with Kyle Turris on the Phoenix Coyotes. Very interesting. Eric Johnson also getting an A. Stammer at 19 years of age. Let's go see. I want to go see what like a guy like Sidney Crosby was. So sorting by potential, he's not at the top. Malkin with the C potential at 23. And Sidney Crosby there, the C potential at age 22. See what I mean? This was definitely the most confusing potential system, and I'm glad it was scrapped in future titles. Do you remember the draft pick selection glitch from NHL 18? So this entry itself is a bit unique as I couldn't actually get footage of it myself from NHL 18. I'm going to have video of it here in a sec, but I couldn't actually do it myself in game. So basically this draft glitch allowed you to select the team after you used draft pick as well as your own. Basically after you made your pick, you could go right down right away and make the next team's pick as well. Again, not the most useful glitch, but nonetheless, kind of a funny one too, as you can make them select anyone you wanted, no matter how good or how bad that was. So I'm going to play a quick video here from Tugi. He did a great job explaining this back in the day in NHL 18, and you can see what I mean about selecting the next team's draft pick. Full video will be linked below.
The way to use this would be if you just really want to screw over one team, right? So for example here, not only am I going to be able to make our pick at 29th, if I do this correctly, I'll get to make the Vegas Golden Knights selection as well. Now, of course, they'll be stuck with that player. It's not like we get that person, but still, we can completely screw over Vegas and make them draft an absolute scrub. So let's see if we can do this correctly, which I already screwed up one of the steps. Let's see if we can do this correctly. We're going to take Hamalainen here, and let's see if we can do this correctly. We did. There you go. Just like that. So as you can see in the top right-hand corner, we now have the Vegas Golden Knights selection, and we can go down, and we can have them select. Let's go with Maki or Semin for the memes. So we're going to select Semin, and there you go.
Do you remember Office Manager in NHL 2004? So going back a little bit further with this one, but do you remember the GM Office Customizer from NHL 2004? This was the only game this did appear in, as it was scrapped the following year. So basically going to Office Rewards, anything that you did throughout GM mode, you can earn points and you can upgrade your GM's office. So if I wanted to go and customize the back wall, I want to put hockey sticks there instead of a calendar, I can do that. Obviously all this stuff has to be unlocked through playing, but there was so much customization here. And it was fun to start with a kind of nothing office, and then you could work your way up. Like you'll see there, I'm changing the shelf in the background. And obviously this is all going to be cosmetic, but still, it was cool to all of a sudden, you know, you get a few years in and you have a pretty sick office. And yeah, there was just so much to customize. If I want to change the computer, I can do that. If I want to change the couch, I want to change different materials, and do whatever. There was a lot of different options for us here. So yeah, do you guys remember, and did you guys play with NHL 2004's GM Office Customizer? I would be very curious to know. But that's going to do it for today's video, and that's going to do it for NHL Do You Remember Part 2. As always, anything else that you may want to see in this series at some point, leave that down in the comments below, as this is going to be a series that is going to be, you know, somewhat interactive with you guys, as I've been around for a long time in these NHL games, but I might not remember all the small glitches, all these small kind of obscurities about franchise mode and the EA NHL series as a whole. So if you do have anything you want to suggest, leave it down in the comments below. But that is going to do it for today's video. I will see you all in the next one.